Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with my week of reading wrap-up. This is where I talk about the books that I read this week, what I'm currently reading, and could potentially read next week. I usually say based on my mood, but I actually have some buddy reads set up, so based on my buddy reads. Let's jump into it because I had a fantastic reading week, mostly boosted by having Monday off because it was a holiday here in the United States. So having that time to just read was great. And as you'll see, as I talk about, some opportunities presented themselves, and I'm very happy that I just jumped on them because they made all the difference in my reading week. So let me jump into, first off, I mentioned that I was reading last week or listening to the audiobook of Attica Locke's Highway 59 series. So the first one's Bluebird. The reason I was interested in listening to this was because her second book in that series, which is Heaven My Home, was nominated for the long list for the Orwellian Prize for Political Fiction. This is a fairly new prize. I think it's its second year. And I love the idea of it. I really like political fiction. And so I was like, well, let me see. So I listened to Bluebird and really enjoyed it, finished it. I gave it 4 stars. I thought the setup was fantastic. The environment was fantastic. We're following the main character, who is named Daryl. He's a Texas Ranger. He's African American. He has some challenges with his family. His marriage is on the rocks, and he has a mother who's kind of a mess, a father who really has expectations of him and wants him to go to law school, doesn't think he's doing the right thing by being a Texas Ranger. And he gets pulled into solving a case that has potential hate crime implications. And this is very important to him because he wants to create a hate crimes unit for their department. And so there's a lot of pressure on him to solve it. I think for me, the first one set itself up very nicely, and I preferred that to the second, which I'd listened to as well, which was Heaven My Home. In this, there's a connection of somebody that he has been close with, who is protecting his granddaughter from a local member of the Aryan Brotherhood, and that Aryan Brotherhood member ends up coming up dead. There's also another storyline which intertwines with it. I think it was good, but it just didn't have, for me, it didn't have as sharp a focus as the first one. However, what I really liked was the introduction of how things has shifted since Trump has taken office. And it's overtly discussed. And so there's all these behind the scenes political dealings with this idea of this hate crimes unit that was created at the end of the last book. Now there are implications because of Trump being in office. And so I really thought that was powerful and added an extra layer to what was already a pretty good series. So I like the second one. I gave it a 3, but I didn't like it as much as the first. Still think it's incredibly valuable. So Attica Locke, I think, is already such a phenomenal writer. I will pretty much read anything that she writes because her style and approach is fantastic. So those were off to a great start with those audiobooks. Then for my in real life book club, I read Dominicana by Angie Cruz. I'm meeting with the book club tomorrow. I'm going to have to text them and tell them not to watch this tonight because I want to talk about it. After reading so many multiple POV books where the story is told through so many different eyes, it felt so calming and lovely just to be in one person's head. So we open the story with Anna as a very young girl who lives in the Dominican Republic and has been told basically by her mother that it's her job to marry one of the Reese brothers because they are up and comers, and they have moved. 3 of the 4 brothers have moved to New York, and they can make things happen for this family. When she is 15 years old, she is proposed to by Juan, one of the brothers. And next thing you know, she is being whisked off, given a fake passport, and taken to New York City, where she does not speak the language and is basically in this little apartment told not to leave, and is now an official wife. And this is how she deals with the expectations that her mother has put into her for all of these years of what it means to be a member of their family, what it means to be a wife, what her obligations are to the rest of the family, and her dreams and her coming to terms with a man that she does not like and who is abusive and treats her as his property, as well as the strange new world that she finds herself in. There's a lot of hard work in this, a lot of thoughtfulness about the immigrant experience, about the duality of wanting your future to be secured, but the pain of where you are in the moment to try to, and all of the work that it takes to make that happen, and how hard that is for someone who does not speak the language, but doubly hard for a young woman. I thought this was a really good book. I liked it very much. I know there have been some criticisms. I haven't really gone to see what those are. It is told very simply. It feels like a simple book, but as I mentioned, I think for me that was its charm. So I enjoyed Dominicana very much. I can't wait to talk about this tomorrow night with my In Real Life book club. Then I also had another audiobook that I jumped on, and this was The City of Brass, the Daevebad Trilogy #1. And this is by S.A. Chakraborthy. And I'm here to tell you, I've heard people talk about how great this series is, and I just needed something so different. I've been in the head of kind of between the wars period and reading so many of that genre, which I love. There's nothing wrong with that. But I really wanted to be taken into something completely different, and this was perfection. The audiobook was great. I had a bunch of task-based work to do that didn't take a lot of thinking. It just took a lot of time. And so I had it in the background, and my husband was listening to it, and we both really enjoyed listening to the audiobook. I highly recommend it, and we'll continue through this series. I think the third is being released soon, if not already. So that's exciting. I love the female character. So it's set really it opens in Egypt, modern day Egypt. And we have a young woman who's kind of a huckster, and she can heal people through magical ways. Doesn't really know why, but she can do it. But she's also a con artist and a thief, and lives by her wits and charms. And she unwittingly heals someone and it releases a spirit and creates havoc. And next thing you know, she is transported to the city of Daevebad. Really great adventure, great fantasy story. Enjoyed it tremendously. I like the political aspects as well as some of the pulling from Islamic myth, Muslim myth, and folklore. So that was fantastic. You got little jinns in there. You have all these aspects that made it a little richer. So that was another good one. And then the piece de résistance, the best thing. I received a notification from my friend Elizabeth at Bookish North that this had arrived. So Elizabeth and I were supposed to be meeting probably next week in London, and she said she was going to wait and pick this up when she was there. Well, obviously, since neither of us are going to London, because she does not live there either, she lives in Norway. She reached out when it arrived and asked if we wanted to read it together. I had just finished my last book and said absolutely, and so we dove right in on a buddy read. And let me just tell you, these are all of the things that we were able to discuss, all the things that I wanted to talk to her about. This is Square Haunting. I guess I should mention the name of the book. Square Haunting, 5 Women, Freedom, and London Between the Wars by Francesca Wade. What Francesca Wade has done with this book is absolutely outstanding research. She creates such a vivid picture of 5 different women that lived on the square in Bloomsbury district, in essence, and lived there at different times. Some lived there kind of overlapping and others different times entirely. But it was all between the war and they all did remarkable things. The commonality is that they were drawn to this place because it offered them freedom and they were in the arts and the humanities. And the 5 women is H.D., who is a modernist poet, Dorothy L. Sayers, who wrote my favorite heroine of all times, Harriet Vane, in the Lord Peter Wimsey series. We've got Jane Ellen Harrison, who is a classicist and translator, Eileen Power, a historian, broadcaster, and pacifist, and Virginia Woolf, of course, the great author and publisher. The detail in this, the interconnection between how these women related to each other and if they knew each other at all, was fantastic, and how each of them really broke boundaries and took chances and tried new things, and how this area of London supported them and encouraged them and inspired them. If I can't be in London, reading about London is the next best thing. This was a remarkable work. It might be my favorite nonfiction book that I've read in the past few years. I cannot possibly recommend it more highly. It's absolutely phenomenal. So please, if you're interested in London, if you're interested in this time period, if you're interested in women in the arts and humanities, if you're interested in any of those women's works, please check this out and you will learn a tremendous amount and be inspired as I was. So, and speaking of inspiration, so one of the things I was inspired by was one of the women, Jane Harrison, spoke 11 languages, 6 living and 5 dead languages. And they were just a lot of talk about women in their older age doing new things and trying new things and this continual lifelong learning. And I've wanted to read in a foreign language for a while. I grew up speaking Portuguese, added Spanish when I was in late middle school, French in high school, and Italian in college. But I have not continued with any of these languages. And to my detriment, I really want to read in the language and really dive deep. And so I decided to pick French. I had to pick one to kind of double down on, and I picked French. So with the help of Dee Dee from Brown Girl Reading, if you don't follow her channel, you should, and she's great on Instagram. I posted something and she reached out to me and we started talking, and she recommended some graphic novels. And so I'm doing my study now. I am spending a little bit of time reading about 15 pages in a graphic novel, which is wonderful because it sets up the context and helps to kind of break down that fear that you have when it's just a block of words. So I'm enjoying myself tremendously with that as well. Now let's talk about what I'm currently reading. So I'm whittling it down because I've kind of finished so many things. Continuing and finishing up this weekend with The Female Quixote by Charlotte Lennox, also known as The Adventures of Arrabella. This has been a phenomenal buddy read, loving it so much. Actually, it's a group read that I'm doing with a bunch of women who wanted to join up and talk about this book. So the next book, we're going to finish it this week, and then next week we are going to start Anne Radcliffe's The Romance of the Forest. But looking forward to starting this next week. And then the other thing I'm reading, this is so not me, this is so outside my comfort zone, but I saw it on Scribd, or I saw it somewhere, my library or Scribd, and decided I would take a chance with it because I just had one of those moods, like, oh, well, let's see what it is. And I got sucked in. I can't wait to share this with you. This was also shown on Shawnee from Pastori Time was reading this. and this is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. This book, let me tell you, it is outrageous. It's outrageous. It is like reading a very, very cheesy 1980s horror show. So it has the vibes. I'm there. I'm in the 80s. I remember these things happening. I can see it. I can smell the smells. It is all there. I'm only 25% in. Doris from All the Books was reading it. She's like, "What am I reading?" And she was freaking out. And so then I got scared, like, "Oh, I don't know what's on up ahead." But we'll see. I could bail or I could keep going. We'll see. But for right now, I'm hysterically laughing, but it's kind of like that nervous laughter that I know something's going to happen. And I don't like horror. I really, really don't. And yet I'm reading this because the writing is so funny and it's just, I'm laughing and I'm nervous at the same time, which is an interesting place for me to be while reading. So we'll see how it goes. And then let's talk about next week. So I have two buddy reads that I'm so excited to start. One is going to be To Calais in Ordinary Time by James Meek. I've been looking forward to reading this. This was on two different book lists. One was, I forget, the Walter Scott Prize list. That's for historical fiction. And then I also think this was on the long list for the Orwellian Prize for Political Fiction. So interested, it didn't make the short list. So we are going really back in time, and this is around the time of the Black Death. So very interested in doing this, and it'll be my first buddy read with my friend, so looking forward to that. And then I'm also going to be doing a read in a different time frame. Let's see, this is 1598, so I'm going really back here. I'm going to read this with Judy, and this is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Really excited to get into this. I've heard some people were about it and that other people loved it. I think Mercedes really, really liked it. I know Shawnee was like, it's okay. So at least it's not a pan. And I know Shawnee does not like historical fiction. So I think maybe for someone like myself that really does, this might mean it's going to be a slam dunk for me. We shall see. So as you can see, I'm buoyed by all the things that I'm reading. I hope you're having a great reading week. Please remember to practice safe social distancing, wash your hands, don't touch your face, and I'll look forward to talking to you later. Please let me know if you have any information about any of these, and I'll look forward to talking to you next week. Okay, bye.